Hi guys, today is a little video on rotations. Alright, we've done translations and we've done reflections, which is a slide and a flip respectively. Well, today is a rotation, so that's a turn. Alright, now just like the others, this is going to be a little different type of video because the first two examples we have, we want to rotate the points or the lines around a certain other point, okay, in this case in point 0, okay, or I shouldn't say point 0, point O. Alright, so one thing I want you to see is this notation right here. This ROT, of course, stands for rotation, and it tells me I'm going to rotate point A, okay, and I'm going to rotate it about point O, and I'm going to rotate it a negative 30 degrees. Alright, and so there's lots of things going on right here. In order to do this, in order to rotate it exactly a negative 30 degrees, then I'm going to have to use a protractor. Okay, and that's what I'm going to have to flip over to the other video and show you exactly how to do this. Alright? Now, the one thing you got to be aware of is you could have a rotation of a negative 30, okay, or you could have a rotation of a positive number. Okay, this one's a negative number over here, and this is a positive number over here, and they mean specific things. All right, a negative rotation is going to tell you to rotate in a clockwise direction. Alright, so you got to imagine you're looking at a clock. Alright, here's 12, and here's 6, and here's 3, and here's 9. And if I have a negative rotation, that means I'm going to rotate in this direction. That means a clockwise direction. Alright, over here, where I have a positive number of degrees, well, that's the opposite. Here's my clock. Alright, here's 12, here's 6, here's 3, here's 9, and a positive rotation means you're going to rotate it in a counterclockwise direction. So we're going to go that way. So let me switch over to the other view and show you how to do these two.
Okay guys, we're going to give this freehand rotation a try, and what I had to do with mine is I had to make it really big so that I could focus well on the flip cam here. So notice I have a protractor. You have to have a protractor to do this if you're not on the coordinate plane. So we are going to do a rotation. Alright, that's what the ROT is for. We're going to rotate point A. We're going to rotate it around point O, and we're going to do a negative 30 rotation. Remember, negative 30 means that you're going to rotate in the clockwise direction. Alright, so mine will look a little different than yours on your paper because I made this really big, but here's all you have to do. Alright, you take your protractor, and we're gonna rotate this point around this point. So this point, oh, this is like my center of rotation. Okay, and I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to just draw a line, and I'm going to connect those 2 points. That gives me like a reference line to go by. Alright, and what I need is a 30 degree, or actually this is negative 30, so I'm going to go clockwise in my rotation. So I'm going to take my protractor and put this little circle at the bottom in the center. I'm going to put that right on the point that I'm rotating around, and I'm going to line up this line. This line right here represents 0 degrees. I'm going to line up that on the line I just drew. Okay, so that gives me my starting point, and I need to go clockwise 30 degrees. So there's 2 sets of numbers out here. Alright, all I have to do is start at 0. This happens to be on the outside set of numbers. So I'm going to go 10, 20, 30. And right outside of 30, I'm going to draw myself, this is going to be my reference point right here, right at this arrow. Okay? So once I have that, this represents a 30 degree rotation. So I'm going to draw myself a dotted line. I'm going to connect this point that I'm rotating around with my reference arrow that I just drew, and that represents, right in here, is going to be 30 degrees. Okay, it's a negative 30 rotation. That tells me clockwise, but it still represents 30 degrees. All right, now you've drawn the angle. Now we just need to preserve distance. All right, so I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to measure. This is 0, so I'm going to put that right on that center dot there. And I'm going to measure right out to the center. That's a big dot, a big point. So I'm going to measure right out to the center of that. And mine, I made mine bigger. So mine's going to be different than yours on your note packet. But mine measures 1 3/4 inches. All right, so I'm just going to go over here and measure out 1 3/4 inches, and that is right there. So that is a prime. All right, so rotation will preserve distance from the point you're centering around, and it also gives a certain degree that you have rotated right there. Okay, so that's that one. Let's slide down to number 2. Again, I made this a little bigger here so you could read it. Rotation, we're rotating line M now. So this is line M, and we're going to rotate this whole line. We're going to rotate it about point O, which again is right here. And this time we're going to go in a positive 45 direction. Okay, so that means we're rotating clockwise. Or I'm sorry, counterclockwise. Okay, positive is counterclockwise. So again, it preserves distance, but first let's put our angle on here. I'm going to put my circle right at the dot, and I'm going to line this line right here. I'm going to line it up right on that blue line, or on yours it's a black line. Okay, and I'm going to move that down just a little bit. And now I want 45 degrees. So again, I start at 0. This time I'm on the inside set of numbers, so 10, 20, 30, 40. And 45 is halfway, and there's my that's going to be my reference arrow. Okay, it doesn't have to be an arrow; it can be a reference line. All right, and I'm going to make like a very dotted. I'm just going to put a couple of dots in here because remember, a rotation preserves distance. So I know I'm not going to go that far out. Again, mine is a little bigger than yours because I had to make it bigger, but this one, oh, actually this one might be what it was. This one I get 2 inches right on the money. So I'm going to go up here and just go along this dotted line for 2 inches, and I'm going to put a dot right out here at 2 inches. And actually I don't need to move that. I'm just going to connect with a solid line. All right, I know I go right out to there. So this is going to be M with a little prime there. Okay, so that is M prime. Right, so I've done 2 rotations with the protractor here, and you know, hopefully you can do that. It's pretty straightforward. And now we're going to do a couple on the coordinate plane.
Okay, now that we've done the examples on the arbitrary plane, we want to switch over to, again, this more mathematical view, which is on the coordinate plane. So let's do a rotation of this point right here. I already have this one graphed here. I'm just going to label it. All right, so here is point A, and that's the point 4, 3. Now a rotation on the coordinate plane, again, there's definite rules that you can follow if you are rotating a certain number of degrees, and 90 degrees is one of those. Okay, so I'm not going to switch over to the other view for this. I did that with the others, but imagine if we could take this whole coordinate plane and rotate it 90 degrees. Now remember, a positive degree rotation means we're rotating it counterclockwise. All right, so I'm going to draw in a little arrow here, and if I rotate this whole coordinate plane counterclockwise, that means it's going to be rotating this way. So this point that starts out in quadrant 1, remember this is quadrant 1, this is quadrant 2, this is 3, and this is 4. Alright, when I rotate this whole coordinate plane, this point in quadrant 1 is going to end up in quadrant 2. Alright, and there is a rule that you can definitely follow. Whatever you start with, whatever x comma y you're going to start with, well, that is going to map, or that is going to rotate to a specific set of coordinates that works off of that. Okay? And if you imagine this coordinate system rotating, alright, where it's going to end up is at -3. Alright, I'm going to graph this right over here. Where it's going to end up is at -3, comma 4. Alright, and I'm just going to draw that in here. A prime is going to be at -3, comma 4. Alright, so here's the way the rule works. Alright, look at 4, comma 3. And look, what did we do? We switched the numbers around, and it looks like the y value turned into the opposite of what it started. Okay, so here's my rule. Whatever I start with over here, we're going to have negative of the y value, or the opposite of the y value, and the x value is going to stay the same, but we've switched them around. Okay, so a rotation of positive 90 degrees, you can always follow that rule right there. Alright, let's try this other one here. Now, so here is point B, and that is at -7, comma 4. And for this one, I'm going to rotate it a -90. Alright, now -90 means I'm going to rotate it clockwise. Alright, and again, if I imagine rotating this whole coordinate plane, there is a rule that I can follow as well. Alright, now you can take your paper and you can turn it 90 degrees. Alright, but if I do that, this point is going to end up at 1, 2, 3, 4, comma 7. Okay, and I miscount that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's going to end up right there. Alright, and if you take your paper and you turn it, you can actually show that that is what's going to happen. Alright, so let's see what the rule is. Whatever we started with, it looks like the 7 and the 4, they changed places again. Alright, so the y is going to be over here, and the x is going to be over here. Now, did any of them change sign? Well, yes, they did. Alright, so that 7, whoops, I'm sorry, that 7 right here, okay, that was the x value. It changed to this place over here, and it turned to the opposite. Alright, so it looks like this turned to the opposite, and the 4, which started out as the y value, turned into the x value. Okay, so here's your rules that work. A positive 90 degrees, you change it like this. A negative 90 degrees, you change it like that. Alright, so there's your rules. Alright guys, now this a little different. We're going to rotate now, instead of 90, we're going to rotate 180. Alright, so let's come up with some rules for a rotation of 180. Alright, here is point C. It's at 3, comma 5. And if I rotate this 180 degrees, again, you take your paper and you completely turn it around upside down. Alright, and this point is going to actually end up down in quadrant 3 down here. Okay, and the new point that's going to be created is going to be at -3, -5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right here. Okay, so C prime is at -3, -5. Well, again, let's go over here and make the rule. Whatever I start with, well, what happened? The 3 and the 5, they didn't change place this time, but look, they both turned opposite. So when I do a rotation of a positive 180, these both change sign. They go opposite. Alright, that was pretty easy. Let's try this one down here. D is at the point -6, -5. Alright, so if I rotate it -180, that means I'm rotating it up here. Okay, and I'm going clockwise with a negative rotation. So let's see, if I rotate this, if I take my paper and I turn it completely 180 degrees, well, it starts out at -6, -5. It's actually going to be at +6, +5. It's going to be right there. That is D prime. Well, what happened? I started out with some X and some Y, and boy, it almost looks like it's the same rule, doesn't it? This changed opposite, this changed opposite, and they didn't change places. So look at that. The rule for a negative 180 degrees and a positive 180 degrees, it's the same rule. Alright, so very cool. Okay, so when you go to do these, just like the reflections, once you know the rule, you don't really have to put it on the coordinate plane. You could really do it without it. Some people are visual, so they like seeing it on the coordinate plane. They like graphing it and actually turning their paper, and that's cool. That's fine. But some people are more text-based. Alright, and if once they know the rule, they can just do it by the rule. So whichever works for you, I'm happy. Alright, so there you go. And again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow.